Welcome everyone to the State DOT CEO Roundtable.
Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for joining us this afternoon for the State DOT CEO Roundtable, always a highlight of the ITS America Conference and Expo. My name is John Barton. I'm with H&TB Corporation, serve as the Senior Vice President and the Chair of our Professional Services Groups, and super grateful for the chance to moderate the session today. We have two great panels of DOT leaders to share with us their insights and experiences. So we're going to get started right now. I would like to introduce Jim Timon, the Executive Director of the American Association of State Highway and Transportation Officials, a friend of all of us, a great leader in the transportation space, and really appreciate Jim and his DOT CEOs for being here today. So Jim, I'm going to turn it over to you.
Well, thank you, John, and thank you to H&TB for all of the support that you provide to the state DOTs and the transportation community overall. It is really my pleasure to be able to be up here with John and with this very distinguished panel of state DOT leaders. It's great for us to be here at the ITS America Conference, the annual meeting, because I think it reflects the state DOT's vision for how technology is going to play a part in what we're doing today from a transportation standpoint and what we'll be able to do in the future as well. There's been a lot of focus over, say, the last 100 years in state DOTs as the engines of construction, where we go out there and have built our transportation network. But really moving forward, there's much more of a focus on how are we operating and maintaining the network that we have, and how are we providing more choices for the people that we serve. And you'll see that reflected in the work that AASHTO does as an association with the development of the Transportation Operations Manual that is going to be released here in the next few months. And you'll see it reflected as well in the day-to-day work that the state DOTs do here across the country. So with that, I am going to go through and introduce the panelists that we have up here. I've got to go back and forth between my glasses and not being able to read this here and actually be able to look down the table. On the far end there, we have Roger Millar, who is the Secretary of the Washington State Department of Transportation, but also he is AASHTO's president this year. So we're happy to have Roger here on this panel. We have Diane Gutierrez-Scicchetti, who's the Commissioner of the New Jersey Department of Transportation. Carlos Perceres, the Executive Director of the Utah Department of Transportation. We've got Jared Perdue from the Florida Department of Transportation, who's got some fans in the audience out there. We have Mark Williams from the state of Texas. Well, I think he has an unfair advantage since we are here in Texas, but we have Brad Wheatford, who is the acting director for the Michigan Department of Transportation. And Marie-Therese Dominguez, who is the commissioner for the New York State Department of Transportation. So let's give them all a round of applause.
Thank you, Jim, and again, to all of our panelists, thank you for being here. We know how incredibly busy you are, and especially during this time of year. You know, you as the infrastructure owners and operators are where these solutions and technologies and policies and procedures are really developed and then deployed to provide all the benefits that we know intelligent transportation solutions bring to our traveling public. And so it would really help a lot of us to understand the depth and breadth of what you do if you could just each share with us a little bit about some of the most recent ITS projects that you've deployed in your state and what the benefits are of those solutions to the traveling public as you've deployed them. So we'll start at the far end and just work our way through and allow each of you to share a little bit about what you're doing in your states. Roger?
Great. Well, thank you, and thanks for the opportunity to talk to this bunch of folks. We're always working on communicating in real time what's happening on our system with our customers. And we've gotten better and better at that over the years. Safety is obviously a big issue for us, and letting people know what's happening, when crashes happen, what alternatives are, and the like, is something that's very important to us. We've engaged well over 1 million followers on our social media accounts, but getting our sensors and our TMCs talking to our communicators and through our communicators talking with our customers is something that we've put a lot of thought into recently. We have developed a virtual coordination center where we have taken the TMCs of the state DOT, the largest city in the state, the police department, the fire department there, the largest transit agency in the state, and the second largest transit agency in the state. We're all virtually linked, so we're working with a common set of data and assumptions about what's happening on our system, and we're able to combine our incident response with our traffic management so that we are, taking care of that overturned truck, taking care of that crash. We're also flexing the transit system around the congestion caused by the crash and getting the word out to folks. So I think you're going to see more and more of that type of combining the technology with communications to make our systems safer and more efficient.
Thank you. Commissioner Scacchetti.
Thanks, John. In New Jersey, I would highlight 2 technology projects that we're working on. The first is our hard shoulder running project on US 1 in South Brunswick. It was a place, US 1 is a very old highway, as most of you may know. It's a 4-lane highway, but New Jersey has 7 million registered vehicles and 9 million residents, so the most densely congested state in the country. We implemented hard shoulder running in an area of US 1 where we have multiple businesses and driveways, and through the use of small DMS and technology for signaling when and where you can use the hard shoulder running. And we have successfully mitigated traffic and reduced travel times by about 15 minutes. It's been so successful that the town has asked us to extend it, which we will do after some study. The other project that unfortunately Carlos has already heard about, maybe some of you, is our Red Clearance Extension Program on a highway known as 129. It is a highway that split the city of Trenton in 2. And in order for folks to get from one side or to the other, they're crossing a very busy stretch of highway. And through using technology with sensors and timing devices, we're able to identify vehicles that are traveling at speeds that will not permit them to stop at a red light, and turning that entire intersection red, both for pedestrians and for vehicles. So we are eliminating the broadside crashes and saving pedestrian lives because they are not starting to cross the street. But in addition, they're also detecting when a pedestrian is still in a crosswalk and not allowing those lights to turn green until we know the pedestrian has cleared the crosswalk. This happens to be an intersection that somehow is determined to be one of the most deadly in America. And so our responsibility is to make it safer for that community.
Thank you. Director Baceres.
Yes, good afternoon, everybody. It's great to be here with you. The folks that have actually done everything are probably out in the audience or out visiting with the vendors, and I get to sit up here and reflect what they have actually done. So probably 4 or 5 years ago, we wanted to begin pushing to implement connected vehicle technology, and we were looking for use cases. And a couple of the use cases that we set on were to improve transit reliability, as well as to improve our ability to plow snow. And so we've used connected vehicle technology to be able to connect our snow plows to the traffic signals and the buses from our biggest transit provider to our traffic signals. In Utah, we went 5 years with extreme drought, and this year we had one hell of a big winter, which is absolutely what we needed, but it was a challenge to be able to keep the roads open. So the use case here, we were asked to talk about resilient and reliable. I'd say that in one case, we had the system. Sometimes you don't know the benefit of the system once you install it, because you didn't do a great job measuring the base case, and that was the case here. But the system went down on one of our plow routes during a pretty big storm, and the operator on that plow route, it took them an hour and a half to complete that route. So if we can plow the roads faster, we can create a safer condition, make the roads safer for the traveling public. And so it took him an hour and a half to make that plow route, and with the preemption, with the connected vehicle technology, he normally does that plow route in 45 minutes. So twice as effective in being able to clear the roads and to make the roads safer. Now, on the transit priority side of things, we selected a route that had most challenges with reliability. The use case here is the more reliable the transit system, the more people will choose to ride transit, which will then help air quality and help just a sustainability perspective. We've seen a 6% improvement in bus reliability on a very, very busy arterial with the connected vehicle technology connecting our traffic signals to the buses. So we think that's been a pretty good success.
Thank you. Secretary Perdue.
Yes. Good afternoon. Really happy to be here. I kind of want to go back to introductions, though. I wasn't real happy with the applause level for me. Yeah. No, I'm going to just kind of talk comprehensively. I mean, over the last 20 years, Florida DOT, I've seen us conceive and implement many, many technology projects that have really built the foundation for where we're going in the future. And several years ago, we finished our last construction project that really gave us 100% coverage with communications, detection devices, data collection devices, and video for our entire freeway system in the whole state. That goes for urban and rural. And I mean, this is actually really huge, because then we were able to develop a Road Ranger Service Patrol for the entire freeway system. So we have 100% coverage on that now. This has had a huge impact on operations, especially in terms of safety, because it's greatly amplified our ability to respond to incidents, manage incidents, and at the same time, we have fully outfitted all of our regional traffic management centers and also co-located many of them with our law enforcement partners. And so it's really kind of set the stage and the foundation for everything that is to come after that. And we've actually branched off and built a lot of new technology deployments that are leveraging that kind of foundational technology infrastructure that we rolled out. One of those is our wrong-way driving countermeasure technology, which has been deployed at many interchanges across the state. It actually detects wrong-way drivers, sends that data to our traffic management center, and then immediately goes to dispatch. And we've had a huge success rate at preventing wrong-way driving crashes, which you all know are usually fatal. Something else that we've been able to do that I consider a technology deployment is emergency shoulder use for hurricane evacuations. As you know, this is like really kind of the meat of our emergency response is hurricanes. Evacuations are a big part of that. We've been able to use the technology infrastructure we deployed on our freeway system to collect data in real time, turn it into very usable dashboards, and make real-time decisions on when to open shoulders for use during evacuations and when to close them. And that has ended up being a very valuable technology for us. It actually facilitated the biggest evacuation in our state's history with Hurricane Irma down in South Florida. So incredibly proud of that. Now, with that, we're continuing to deploy a lot of new emerging type technologies. Obviously, one of the big challenges is getting, collecting the data, storing it, but then finding a way to get it in people's hands to be used. And so we were really proud to start a pilot in partnership with One.Network for a lane closure notification system, where we're inputting real-time data about lane closures, so that information can then be shared with navigation apps, and hopefully, with the goal of getting to the end user. And so, the safety, mobility implications for that are really limitless. So we're really excited about that as well.
Thank you. Director Williams.
So one of the reasons we're really excited about being able to be part of the effort to host ITS America here in Texas, and especially here in the Dallas-Fort Worth Metroplex, is really just the tremendous number of different examples of successful and ongoing ITS deployments that are happening right now throughout the whole Metroplex area and the state of Texas. A couple of things that I really want to highlight is most of those are focused and built around safety and mobility. A lot of that is geared on freight, and especially here in the Metroplex, this is one of the top distribution hubs for freight in the nation. We have in Alliance Airport, north of Fort Worth, a huge intermodal complex with air, rail, both 2 Class 1 operators and highway and trucking. They're a great partner with us in the North Central Texas Council of Governments, the MPO for this region, in developing smart corridor technology, innovating autonomous vehicles, and even drone technologies in that area. And with an eye being, how can we improve the efficiency and the mobility of freight operations in and out of Alliance Airport north of Fort Worth. Similarly, or a common issue with freight is also on the south side of the Metroplex. Lancaster, Texas is home to 4 active autonomous trucking deployments going on right now, running the I-45 corridor between Dallas-Fort Worth and Houston. And those companies continue to sign on contracts, many of them with Fortune 500 companies. They're actively moving freight and are on schedule, for driverless, pure driverless deployment within the next year and a half. So that's exciting. There's still some efforts that we're taking into that with partnerships to look at a collaborative effort to improve some of the operations and communications along Interstate 45 to help make sure that we're actively disseminating information that the AV trucks need to successfully operate, and that they're also sharing that information with us so that we can be more effective in managing those corridors. So those are a couple of highlights of just a few of some of the just really exciting things that are happening here in the Metroplex.
Thank you. Director Riefrich.
I really appreciate the opportunity to talk about our successes. I'll tell you, when I come to meetings like this and sit in on some of the sessions, it seems like we're talking about the visions and the challenges and how are we going to get to the future. And I love the idea that we're talking about the great things that our folks are all doing right now. In Michigan, we also, like Jim mentioned earlier, are really changing our focus from being, everything about the brick and mortar, about the infrastructure, to how people use it. We've implemented a lot of ITS, but one of the things I wanted to mention was our Michigan Mobility Wallet Challenge. This is really a people-focused effort on transit, looking at how we can improve the interoperability of transit, providing greater access for personal mobility. This will essentially set up, for lack of a better word, an app that'll allow the different systems to be integrated and allow folks to put funding within that app to really streamline and make it efficient for folks to be able to use transit. We recently awarded 3 grantees. We're not looking for just one type of one solution. We're kind of looking across the board at what might be. These folks are working in the space of public transit, working with Southeast Michigan, a lot of the individual transit companies coming together to see how their systems can be more integrated. Another grantee is looking even more closely at the people aspect on veterans and how do we ensure that veterans have the ability to get to the services that they need as well, just as a use case. And then the other entity is really more of the pure ITS MOS platform, looking at the actual technology and how could we create this app that would allow for streamlined access for folks to be able to use transit. Again, it's really about mobility and how people are using it.
Thank you. Commissioner Dominguez.
Hi, good afternoon. As Diane was noting, the Northeast, in particular, New York, is a very extremely densely populated area. Number of commuters utilizing all modes of transportation. And one of the things that we looked at, New York State looked at with the opening of the new Mario M. Cuomo Bridge was how do we make sure that we leverage the existing transit systems that we have with what some of the new opportunities would be. So what we did was look at creating a more modern transit service that really serviced the communities north of New York City in particular, where there was a lot of need. We created the Lower Hudson Transit Link, which is a new, modern, integrated corridor management technology system that really looks at further connecting and utilizing everything that we can to not only inform users of the roadway about existing conditions, but rapidly respond to all of those changing conditions, because you can imagine we get a little bit of everything along the way. But some of the things that we looked at were signal upgrades and technology-focused improvements. And it was really a comprehensive look at all of the intersections. What did we need to do to not only just improve that pedestrian linkage, but more importantly, how do we make sure that it was going to be have some dedicated bus lanes, things that are actually going to move people in the most efficient and effective and environmentally friendly ways. So that also included some ramp metering, and then again, making sure that we had dedicated bus lanes. That was just the beginning of some of the things that we started to look at. One of the things that I wanted to just talk about right now, because we're taking a lot higher level look at statewide what we're actually looking at in terms of ITS. And one of the investments that we're making is an investment directly in the New York State Department of Transportation, an effort that we're undertaking called Project Greenlight. And this is really an effort to upgrade all of our signal technology statewide. I know a number of states have done this across the board, but we still have a number of in-pavement loops. And the bottom line is that we're investing like nobody's business to actually replace them with new modern detection devices, so that whether it's microwave or radar, whatever we can do, we're making sure that the cameras are being launched and that we're able to take it, a whole Artismo program to another level. And I can say it's motivated not only the folks at New York State DOT, but a lot of our customers, a lot of our partners, city, county, villages across the board. Everybody's extremely excited about it. So between our Artismo strategic plan and our Project Greenlight effort, we have basically 3 central focus areas. We're focused on connections, detection, and metrics. And with connections, we're really looking at connecting those 6,000 traffic signals across the state. So with detection, we're trying to make sure that not only are we installing new non-intrusive detection systems, but we're actually trying to realize all the cost efficiency and savings that come along with that, along with the reliability factor. And then lastly, with the metrics, everybody knows the value of actually using the data that you collect, right? Predictive analytics, how do you put it to work? But the bottom line is that we're doing that, and we're investing in a way that we haven't done before. And we're taking a lot of the lessons that we've seen from our colleagues around the country, but really trying to make sure that we see that return on the investment across the board. And the last thing that I'll mention is that we've moved legislation in the New York State legislature year after year, and this year we're implementing a piece of legislation that we got passed last year on automated work zone speed monitoring. It's a pilot program that we put in place. We just launched it last week. We've got 30 cameras around the state that are rotating on a daily basis. You can imagine that was a blitz around the state in terms of educating everybody on what we're doing, but we've just launched it, and I have a feeling that we want to make sure that we do absolutely everything we can do to protect our highway maintenance crews out there, our contractors, everybody that we work with. Everybody's got a stake in this game, but more importantly, it's an education effort to fundamentally help with behavior on the roadways.
Yeah, thank you. Great examples from all of our states on very important improvements and implementations they're putting in place. I'd like to ask a question now. I'll start with Commissioner Scacchetti. There were some common themes in the examples that were shared. One was addressing all modes of transportation and having a full integrated system, and the other was connecting with community and users in a very meaningful way. In your role, Commissioner of Transportation in New Jersey, you not only have the DOT, but the Transit Authority and the Turnpike, led the Florida Turnpike Enterprise as well, and have leadership roles at IBTTA and TRB, and it could go on and on and on. From your perspective, what are the things that you think are essential to be doing to integrate all of these modes and use through these technologies, as well as involving community, kind of best practices or lessons learned? We'll start with Commissioner Scacchetti, and of course would offer any of the rest of the panelists an opportunity to share a response.
Thanks, John. So for us, It is important that we plan not only for the DOT, but that we bring all parties to the table together to create safe projects that are meaningful to communities. A good example of that was when we had to reconstruct a bridge at 495 on the entry to the Lincoln Tunnel, and there was a huge transit concern because we were going to restrict buses on a roadway that takes 1,850 buses every morning into Manhattan. Wow. Pre-pandemic. And they weren't sure we could safely move those buses. But after some wrangling and gnashing of teeth and dismay, we found that we were able to do it, and we were able to work together to meet each other's goals of not putting those 1,850 buses into communities where the buses probably wouldn't have intersections that had proper turning radiuses, and there would have been grave safety concerns, as well as delays. We allowed those buses to continue basically their normal route and had no incidents during the period of construction. It was an unusual effort, but I think at the end of the day, it was the first time they had to find a meeting of the minds. And it really has borne out in the work we're doing at DOT to make safer intersections with red clearance. Many of you know that one of the issues buses have is not always being able to see pedestrians as they are crossing. A bus, even with 360 mirrors, can struggle. And the more we do to create pedestrian safety with red light clearance, with making sure that our pedestrians are out of crosswalks, the safer those buses can move together. Obviously saving lives, but also reducing liabilities to the agencies and being good community partners in communities where public transit is key, many times in our underserved communities across New Jersey.
Other panel members have thoughts to share on integration of modes and engaging communities in ITS solutions? Roger?
Yeah, real quick, our I-405 express toll lanes, it's a 45-mile system of express toll lanes where you can pay to be in the lane or you can be HOV3. We developed that in partnership. It was FHWA, FTA, the DOT, the transit agency, and all the cities and counties along the corridor. We've created a system that allows 35% more vehicle throughput than before we had the system in place. We also have direct access ramps on and off of the express toll lanes that we're working with Sound Transit to turn into their first bus rapid transit corridor. We also worked with the county on connecting the active transportation network to the bus stops. So we've been able to have people in cars, people in buses, people walking, people biking, all taking advantage of a technology that gives us 35% more capacity without adding any concrete or asphalt to the system.
Yeah, incredible improvements. Carlos?
Yeah, so we're, when I say Utah's unique, some different images probably run through your minds, but we made the decision probably 20 years ago that we wanted to operate every traffic signal in the state of Utah as if it was on the same network. And so every signal, whether it's city, county, or state, is on the same communication system, running the same software. And we made the deal with all of the communities that we would give them access to our traffic signals. They can change the timing, but we also have access to theirs. Let's just call each other if we're going to make any change. And so that allows us to operate the entire network as if it's one network, and we're able to optimize those signals much better than we've ever done before. We're now beginning to work with communities. We just worked with the city of Orem. It's a city of 50, 60,000 people, and we put V2X on all of their traffic signals so that the buses can have priority through their city, as well as it gives all of their emergency providers, so ambulance and police, first responders, all have traffic signal prioritization as well on those signals. And all of their vehicles are also giving that live information back into the system. So we're pushing to try to increase the penetration of vehicles that are communicating back into the infrastructure. We have another project where we're going to be working with Cache County and Logan City to be able to do the prioritization for their bus system and the city's traffic signals as well. So having that communication system where all of them can speak together and it's not separated by jurisdiction has really added a lot of benefit for us to be able to optimize the movement of people and goods through the system.
Thank you, Carlos. Let me go ahead, Brad.
Yeah, I'll go real quick and just talk about our Michigan Avenue US 12 job. US 12 is an old route that went into the city to Detroit from the west. We've really been taking a look at reimagining what that corridor could be. We know we wanted to promote something that was safe, provided equitable access for all types of mobility in the corridor, all the while considering what emerging technologies we might be able to bring in. One of the bonuses is that a part of this also sits within the transportation innovation zone with our Michigan Central Ford partners in the city of Detroit. So we actually put together a PEL, the Planning Environmental Linkage, to bring all of the stakeholders together to talk about what this corridor could be. So we had the state, we had the city, we had the transit agencies, we had the local business communities, everybody kind of taking a look and saying what ultimately could this corridor be. Part of what we're ending up with right now is the piece that we're going to reconstruct in Corktown area. We'll have dedicated transit lanes. It will have dedicated bicycle lanes. It'll have plenty of pedestrian facilities as well. So I think by bringing all of the stakeholders together and really talking about what they want and what they need and bringing in the technology and community folks, I think we're going to end up with a pretty exciting and innovative project.
Thank you. Let me turn to another question. You know, we've heard in this industry for a long time, and all of you as owner-operators and your colleagues across the country have heard that deployment at scale is really the only way we're really going to start seeing the big benefits of these types of solutions, and yet that's one of the challenges that we face. But in Florida and in Texas and in New York, we've heard that you've been able to successfully do large-scale deployments. So the question to the three of you to start with is, you know, what were the challenges you encountered? How did you overcome that? And what advice would you give to your peers? And then how do you demonstrate the return on investment that gives confidence to the public and to the people that give us the money to do our public works, the confidence that those investments are paying dividends? So we'll start with Secretary Perdue and then just come down through Texas and New York.
Sure, thank you for that question. So, you know, in terms of challenges, return on investment, you know, with technology deployments, it's always difficult because, you know, it's with just regular construction, it's easier for people to connect the dots. You know, they see what we're paying for, they see what they're getting for that money and for those investments. You know, technology provides a lot of other benefits that if we don't find a way to connect the dots for the people we serve, sometimes it's difficult for them to understand just how great the benefits are that we're seeing from that technology. And so it's really become a core focus of ours with technology deployments to find a way to connect what we're doing with the communities that we serve and show people day in and day out the true benefits that they're getting from all these technology deployments. One of those that, you know, we struggled with for many years and have recently grown, and I mentioned this earlier, is our Road Ranger Service Patrol, where we have 100% coverage of our freeway system now. And for many years, we struggled with a way to show people and explain to them how this could really be a benefit. Once we were able to kind of take that plunge and take the leap, people began to see just how important these service patrols were, because they're impacting their lives on a daily basis. And so even when a family is stranded on the side of the road, you know, a Road Ranger Service Patrol vehicle shows up within minutes most of the time. And it could be a mother with her kids or something. This has a huge emotional impact on the people that we serve, and it, in turn, it enables us to gain more support for continuing to fund a service like that. And so really, you know, the burden is on us to find a way to capture those benefits and really tell that story back to the communities we're serving so that we can continue to provide not only that service but fund future deployments. You know, one of the big challenges that we have really faced is with the technology infrastructure we've deployed is finding a way to use that infrastructure that really resonates with individuals that are using our facilities. And so, this is something we've been working on recently is, okay, we've got the infrastructure deployed. We have kind of a foundational technology network. Now, how do we tap into the potential, the horsepower that's in the private sector and the industry and make that infrastructure available to the industry to really start leveraging what we've built? And so, we think there's a lot of untapped potential there we're really excited about.
Thank you, Director Williams.
So, in Texas, if you're talking about just examples of use cases and proving out a return on investment, one of the things that we have successfully deployed here in the Metroplex, particularly over in the Arlington area or Fort Worth area, but also some in Dallas, has been expanded wrong way driving detection systems, and those are really proving out to be quite successful, and we know and can demonstrate that those systems have helped to mitigate or stop hundreds of wrong-way drivers that are directly leading to lives saved. And so I think that's a tremendous opportunity to really prove out, just some of the tangible investments that you get from ITS technology investments on our highways. But the challenge as we're talking about doing this at scale is, ITS comes along with a lot of stuff that needs to be maintained. Here in just the Metroplex alone, we've got nearly 9,000 ITS assets, signals, cameras, dynamic message systems that TxDOT and the cities and counties have to maintain. We have within TxDOT 9,300 assets on our system statewide. Those assets have grown 7% a year. Over the last 6 years, they've increased by 50%. And I see that rate accelerating. And so the challenge is maintaining that stuff that has a lifespan sometimes of 3 to 5 years, and having a business case and a business plan to be able to sustain it, keep it operational and functional going forward. And that's going to be something that's going to be a challenge going forward as we see these assets and these investments made.
Thank you. Commissioner Dominguez.
So I'll take a little bit of a variation on that, but I think one of the major challenges that we've found in working with our local partners is really the variation in resources and a variation in know-how in terms of capabilities right across the board. So just by way of example, if you're in Albany and you're going to go from downtown Albany to Schenectady, two historic cities, you go via Route 5, Central Avenue, and you start off on a City of Albany road. It transfers partially to a state road, Route 5, and then back to the City of Schenectady. And when you traverse Central Avenue from Albany to Schenectady, you have a whole variety of signal systems at your disposal. And in doing so as we look to upgrade that entire corridor, working with the municipalities, it's all about that partnership. It's all about talking to people, working with your partners, and making sure that you're identifying what some of those obstacles are and how to work together. Because sometimes when you literally drive up to some of these intersections, you can literally hear the crank grind before the signal actually turns. And so, it's been a challenge. But that said, the only way we overcome it is by actually working together. One of the other challenges that we've also found is that there's really not enough contractors out there. Not enough people out there, certainly not in upstate New York, that have the knowledge that can actually undertake a lot of the work that needs to get done. And then we've had a lot of impacts on the supply chain as a result of COVID. So what we've done, and what I'd give as advice, is that it's all about building those relationships, making sure that we can plan early, have very robust discussions with community, and really make sure that we coordinate and have a much more robust plan. The other thing is we're leveraging our relationship with Federal Highway a lot. We have just updated our traffic signal management plan. They were very helpful as we did that in terms of utilizing the Resource Center and technical support across the board. And of course, working with the vendor and contracting community, there's just so many opportunities. And another great reason to be at ITS America, to learn more about what some of the vendors and the contractors are out there developing for us to use next, because Lord knows the technology is evolving quickly and we want to take advantage of it.
Thank you. So I'm going to ask one last question of our panel members, and I'll start with Commissioner Dominguez and go down the line. The question is this, in just a few words, what can industry do, both in the public sector and the private sector, to help you and your organization succeed in delivering these solutions?
Well, I think I'll just feed off of what I just said, which is forums like ITS America provide the level of direct access to vendors and contractors and consultants, and we get the opportunity to actually learn a little bit more, because not everybody has that view as directly on a day-to-day basis, right? So I sound like I'm shilling Laura, congratulations. But it really is an opportunity, and like I just said, with technology shifting so quickly, we want to know, because as you're investing these very scarce dollars that we have, we want to invest wisely.
Thank you. Brad?
Yeah, real brief, but we need to continue talking so that we understand what's possible. I really believe, again, that events like this will help us understand more about what our roles and responsibilities can be. I think about that, the DOT is just a piece, I believe, of how we advance with ITS. It's going to take all of us working together, from the vendors to the contractors to the consultants, so that we can all kind of modify and refine that vision going forward.
Thank you. Mark?
So I'd say, as we look to some of the successes that we've had here in Texas and throughout the Metroplex, our role with the DOT has really been to seek out through industry where those opportunities are, and to step in and enable those opportunities, and then to be a partner and a facilitator to help the private sector achieve those goals. And I think that's where we're seeing that continued growth in places like Alliance Airport and Lancaster, Texas, with our AV trucking companies, and that's where the future is going to be. That is going to be the key, I think, to maintaining the success that we have seen in this area of transportation technology, and achieving the full vision of that in the future.
Thank you. Jared?
Yeah, so one thing I would say is we need to continue to grow the workforce in the technology sector. I mean, we need more people. Obviously, that's a critical component. And so continuing to attract and retain talent in that sector is really big. But one of the big, I say, game-changing ideas and concepts that we're talking about in Florida is really figuring out how to tap into the innovators and the creators and those that are developing emerging technologies. Because we do, at DOT, we do infrastructure, and we do it well. We deliver infrastructure, but really the horsepower and the power of what the future holds really lies with the industry. And so finding a way to build that partnership in such a way that we're tapping into your innovation and your emerging technologies, and really developing a framework where you can test those technologies and implement those technologies in a safe space, so that we can get to them being a reality much faster.
Thank you. Carlos?
Yeah, take the time to understand what the problems we're dealing with and what we're trying to solve. Instead of showing up with, a great technology and expecting us to try to think about, now, how can I apply that to solve this problem here? Understand our problems and challenges, and come prepared to help us solve those problems and challenges.
Diane?
Really echoing what Carlos said, remember, we're really not your ultimate customer. Our communities are your ultimate customers. We're a conduit to them. We're a partner with you. And so when you come to us, understand that what we're looking to buy is not what maybe satisfies us inside an office building, but when applied to our communities, makes them safer, makes them more efficient, makes them less congested for those who we serve every day.
All right, thank you. Well, let's give a round of applause to our first panel. They did a great job. And as they're exiting stage left, I guess that's stage left, that direction, I'm going to invite our second panel to join us on the stage. All right, well, we'll go ahead and get started with our second panel. We are very fortunate to have the CEO and President of ITS America, our very own Laura Chase, to get us kicked off. So, Laura, I'm going to turn it over to you to share some words, and then I'll take it from there and introduce our panel members and get started with the questions.
All right. Can you hear me? Yes. Okay. Well, thank you, John. Welcome, everyone, to our second panel. Some might say the more energetic panel, we'll see, of the day. So I want to tie into some of the remarks we just heard as we talk about the second panel, where the topic is investing in an intelligent future. And I think we heard on the first panel some of the challenges. Workforce development is a challenge. Maintaining and operating an ever more complex infrastructure environment is a challenge. You know, so how do we take that and invest in an intelligent future? And this investing in an intelligent future is really focused on community-centered transportation and a vision that really centers around people. And I think there's a lot of work that we as a public and private sector industry need to come together and do to ensure that our states and our public agencies do have the tools, the workforce, the technical capacity and understanding to deploy these technologies. Because at the end of the day, transportation is what connects people. When you talk about community-centered transportation, it's about access to your job, access to healthcare, access to education, access to fun, social well-being. And at the end of the day, that's what we're trying to achieve here. And so we need to be able to marry all of those goals that I know all of you talk to your communities about, and they look to you to help deliver those benefits with the real challenges of how do we actually maintain and operate an ever more complex system. I don't have the answers for you all, but I do think it shines a bright light on some areas of focus going forward as we continue to invest in this digital transformation of how we need to be helping our public and private sector together co-create solutions and really develop that workforce of the future so we can truly make these investments.
All right, thank you, Laura. So to the panel members, let me introduce them first. We're very fortunate to have some of the primary leaders within state DOTs that are actually working with industry to develop and deploy these solutions across the country. So we'll start. We have Raj Panalori from the Florida Department of Transportation, and Raj manages their emerging technologies programs. Next to Raj is Tara Olds from the Minnesota DOT, and Tara is the director of the Minnesota DOT's Automated Vehicles Program. We're excited to have her with us today. Next to her is Elise Feldposh, who is with the Michigan DOT and is one of their connected vehicle specialists as well as a leader in that program for them. And then at my far left is John Hibbard with the Georgia Department of Transportation, and he's the director of their operations division. So I'll start with Mr. Hibbard, because his director is not here. Commissioner McMurray was not able to make it to the conference this year, but is a great supporter of ITS and ITS America. And so for the rest of you, your directors may be out there. It just would encourage you to be careful with your answer to the question. But the question is this: if you were in charge with unlimited authority, what one project would you have your states develop and deliver over the next 10 years, and how would that address the challenges and the needs that you have in your state?
Well, thank you, John, and good afternoon, everybody. And I know our commissioner, Russell McMurray, is not present here, but I will give him a shout out because the support that we enjoy from him is tremendous. And it matters, and we do not take it lightly. But in return for that support that he gives us, we try to give him. We give him information. We give him data, we move quickly, we get projects deployed quickly. And that gives him things that he can say, points that he can make, factoids that he can sprinkle throughout conversations and presentations. And that, to me, is an entirely fair transaction. His support, information. The project that we would like to see us undertake, really, we're already underway. We're doing it. And it's our statewide fiber project. this project, which was born out of a basic traffic management need, and in fact it was referenced in the prior panel, and that's evacuating traffic due to hurricanes. And one of the things that happens in that is the cell network gets overwhelmed. And that's how we are communicating with many of our devices right now. And right now, today, that communication will be fine. It's only during those crisis moments that the system fails us. So that network will help to underwrite that, and that's a very traditional sort of a way. We're looking for situational awareness. But what it also does, though, is it sets the stage for the future, both in terms of a platform for our connected vehicle expansion, which is statewide, as well as setting the stage for future interactions with the increasingly automated vehicles of the future. Good news is that the first of those several design builds is actually on the street right now. And so what I look forward to is the successful accomplishment of all of those. And I'm glad for the support that we have to that end.
Thank you, John. Elise?
Yes, I'm just in awe of John's response. It was so eloquent. But I think, one of the ITS project that I'd really like to see, we are also already doing, and perhaps isn't as flashy, but I would really love to see that we can ensure long-term infrastructure sustainability, achieving that through effective infrastructure modernization. It's something that we like to add, we like to expand, we like to make more complex. But you don't always need to add. You need to look at what you're trying to solve and then figure out if there's a solution that can be done, perhaps not even through infrastructure. Perhaps you can remove infrastructure and it can be achieved through a different methodology, a different type of systems engineering. So I think it's one of those things that it's the continuous reevaluation of your system and being able to look at the ways in which you can operate it and maintain it effectively, continuing to move forward, because you always have these big flashy projects that come on and they're all very exciting and very good, but it's all about backing up what you're doing with the best practices and the performance metrics. It's not always about the headline. So it's an exciting thing that I hope we're able to continuously achieve and focus on even beyond the next 10 years.
Thank you. Tara?
So 3 things that are really important, I think, in Minnesota that we're trying to focus on are winter weather, maintenance work zone areas, as well as vulnerable roadway users. And I'm going to take that third one and really prioritize that. I think one thing that we really need to consider is what is safety and who's benefiting from safety. And when we think about the technology that most industry has approached me and my colleagues with, it's often focused on the vehicles and people in vehicles. And when you think of the impact that has to the most vulnerable roadway users, we start to question, are they going to see those benefits as well? And when we look at the disproportionate fatalities of pedestrians and cyclists, I think there's a lot of opportunity for us to do more, do better. So much of the technology that I talk with industry is about relying on mobile devices for pedestrians. I always joke that you always want me to run 20 different applications so that your technology knows where I am, so the vehicles know where I am. My battery's going to be dead, so now the blame's going to be on me as a pedestrian, and we already put fault and responsibility on pedestrians and cyclists in undue ways. So I think there's a lot of opportunity for technology to advance equitable transportation systems for those that probably can benefit it from the most.
Raj?
Okay. My boss knows this. Generally, when he says 1, I say 3. So as we heard from the leadership earlier too, safety and mobility has always been a focus. And at Florida DOT, 7 years ago, we started a wrong way driving initiative, which has now been mainstreamed. So I would say, instead of talking about a project, a portfolio of projects that would really address safety and mobility is going to be key. Whether it's vulnerable road user safety with bicycles and pedestrians, railroad safety is a big aspect. Florida has many seaports. We need to cater to those as well. And also, as we get more and more into large-scale construction projects, there's a role for smart work zones, shall we say. So there's a plethora of opportunities that are available that we should pursue, but it's also dependent on which particular aspect we're looking at overall.
Thank you. So the next question I'm going to ask, I'm going to start with Tara because she's in Minnesota, and it relates to one of her predecessors, a dear friend of mine and peer, Bernie Arsenault. So when Bernie and I were together at our respective state DOTs, both of us shared a passion around Vision Zero, or toward zero deaths, and it's still a high priority for us in the industry. All of us focus on that every day as the most important thing to do, and many of you talked about the importance of ITS in improving the safety of our transportation system for all users. And so the question is, as you think about this, AASHTO and USDOT and others have called on first movers like yourselves to really drive these technologies to show that they can reduce crashes and improve safety and reduce deaths. And so want to ask you all to expand a little more about what you're doing in your states through your programs and through your leadership to deploy these technologies and to create partnerships that are contributing to the safe systems approach that USDOT has adopted and what you're seeing as the outcome of those efforts. So I'm going to start with Tara, and then I'll go to Raj, and then to Elise and John.
So I think it's really easy to say we're making the world safer through ITS and CAV, but I don't think we have a great way to measure that. We're not seeing technology, we're not seeing industry, we're not seeing even our own DOTs being able to capitalize that and figure out how many fatalities, how many serious crashes are we really preventing. I think there's a lot of opportunity for us to gather different data, actually start to have that in-house, and really understand what those true benefits are. So I start to, going back to that question earlier of who's benefiting from the safety as well. So I think there's a lot of opportunity for us to do more there. We acknowledge in the safe systems approach that humans will make mistakes, and that all the technology that I've seen to date tested in Minnesota has mistakes, I'll say. Not 100% foolproof. We have some opportunities to do more, and I think that shows that we acknowledge humans are going to make mistakes, but what about technology? And are we looking at ways that technology can be complemented, we can coordinate it? So if one company has something that's working here and another's there, how do we bring those together in a collaborative way to really see the benefit for all the people?
Thank you, Tara. Raj.
Okay. So 5 years ago, we started the Connected Vehicle Program, and at that time, we had 0 projects. But today, if you look at the portfolio of Florida DOT's program, we have 45 different projects, of which 35 are directly from Florida DOT. And if you really break it down, about 20 to 25 of these projects have a direct correlation with safety. We have the Florida DOT's V2X data exchange platform, which is really meant to solve, shall we say, the onboard unit problem so we can transmit the data and get the motorists to know about what is happening on the roadways. We have what is called the Gainesville Bicycle Pedestrian Safety Project, which is a federal highway UF8 project is what we call it. We also have what are called I-75, I-4 frame projects. I can go with the list on and on, but the bottom line premise with all these projects is we ask the question, is this going to make a difference at the field level? Passive pedestrian detection, for example. Getting the signal phase and timing data so drivers know well in advance at what speed they should be moving to get through the intersection. We heard from our secretary about the lane closure notification system, which is already making a big difference because now roadway motorists get to know well in advance before they get into the work zones that they need to start slowing down. We also have other projects which have been helping us with Road Ranger Service Patrol. We have conducted a comprehensive analysis, and we know that the benefit to cost ratio is significant enough for the department to make more investments. Work zone safety always has been at the forefront. Many road rangers unfortunately get hit. So it is not only about the safety of the motorists, but also about the safety of workers who work in the work zones and first responders. And these are some of the things that we have been taking up over time.
Thank you. Elise.
Yes, I want to talk specifically about the work zone portion of ITS. The whole idea of connected work zones is something that we've really started to focus on very passionately at Michigan DOT, and I know that is very common for a lot of the infrastructure owner-operators that are out there, because the numbers are increasing, and it is something that we really, really do need to be concerned about. And so we're looking at all the different ways in which we can impact that most effectively through the use of ITS technology. So we talk about connected work zones and the idea of having the devices that are implemented actually out there on the roadways that can then relay the accurate indication of the start and end of the work zone. We also talk about mobile attenuators to be able to take on that in an autonomous way. There's a lot of ways in which technology can be able to address the work zone related fatalities and the subsequent crashes that do occur because of not being knowledgeable about what's happening in a work zone. We have a lot of regulation within Michigan that is supposed to make the work zone safer. We reduce the speed. If there are workers present, we reduce them even more. But how do we know if workers are present? And that's been one of the biggest challenges towards trying to actually moderate that. How can we actually hold people accountable if nobody can define when or when not a worker is present? So one of the pilot projects that we did last year, actually it was a partnership, We did a project where we were able to actually implement vests out on the side of the road to be able to more accurately depict when the workers were in the work zone. And it wasn't even just specifically generally were they in there, it was where are they specifically in the work zone, so that within a certain number of feet we can say that these are being recognized here. So it's just multiple steps. There is no one big step. It's all of the things that will lead to safe system approach for our work zones.
Thank you. John.
One of the things that I get every morning in my email inbox is the updated fatality data. Not exactly the brightest way to start the day, you know. But our data for 22 is settling down. Maybe it's done, but you never know. And for this moment, at this moment, Georgia's fatalities for 22 were 1 greater than in 21. But while you might focus on the 1, the reality is that there's 1,800 plus others that, so to speak, went before them. And so safety is an ongoing issue, an ongoing drumbeat. And I think I'm going to do a poor job of paraphrasing a comment made by Blaine Leonard, who said that the Vision Zero concept can only be fully realized via the use of connected vehicle technology, whether in the context of the work zone you've heard, the context of vehicle-to-vehicle interactions, or, VRUs, vulnerable roadway users, the pedestrians, the bicyclists, even that. And I think that's that key to getting, ultimately, to closing the gap to Vision Zero.
Yeah, Laura, I'm going to ask you to offer a few thoughts about what all of us can do. I know ITS America has been leading an effort to drive policy and programs to advance towards zero death and Vision Zero, and making sure that Congress has given us the tools and the flexibility and the direction to do some of these things. So just thoughts you would have around this most important topic as well.
Yeah, thank you, John. So we have been working really closely with our members, with the United States Department of Transportation, to create a national V2X deployment plan, and many of you might be staying on Friday for a workshop hosted by the US DOT on this very topic. I'm going to actually paraphrase the words of another transportation leader who I admire greatly, Jennifer Hamady of the NTSB, who said, when you look at the safe systems approach, technology plays a starring role in every single layer of the safe systems approach, and it must, if we are to get to zero deaths. So we know there's no one solution, and we know there's no one technology, just like there's no one physical infrastructure improvement that is going to get us to Vision Zero. We actually need it all. And so I would say that is what we have been focused on, is we have been focused on how can you deploy ITS in your Safe Streets for All grants, right, to enhance safety? How can you deploy ITS in every single aspect of the safe systems approach to actually enhance safety and save lives? And I firmly believe, and thank you, John, for your comments, I firmly believe we can only get to zero if we actually have a plan that incorporates both the physical and the digital. Vision Zero is a vision, but you can't get to the vision without a plan. So that's what we're focused on, is what is that plan? What is that roadmap to actually have scaled, interoperable connectivity nationwide?
Yeah, thank you, Laura. And I'll just take an executive privilege here to ask all of us, but especially our public sector partners that are here this week. We have some of our US DOT leadership here, and they are doing great things to help drive this forward and to put that roadmap in place, that plan in place. But I know they would love to hear from you and what your thoughts are and what you need so that they can then work on your behalf at the US DOT to really put a plan in place that will help you as owner-operators and implementers to put those solutions out there on the roadway and to protect all of us. So I want to pivot now to a question around addressing some of the things that you have mentioned and the previous panelists have mentioned, and that is around transportation solutions for all of us. So, community-centered transportation systems are established upon connecting communities and making sure that as you travel about, you have reliability in whatever the technology solution may be to work. My biggest complaint is I use Siri to drive my directions for me, and when I get into the urban canyons, Siri thinks I'm several miles away from where I really am, and that's a little bit confusing for me. But as you think about deploying solutions across communities, across regions, outside of your own states, I know John's working with Florida, with Raj and others to do bi-state or multiple state solutions, and across the nation. The question is, how are you coordinating that? How are you making sure that all of these things are going to work and that they have seamless interfaces at the edges so that as we move into the future, we have solutions that we can depend upon regardless of where we happen to be within the network. So I'll start with Raj. I know you've been working on that, and then offer the rest of the panelists an opportunity to chime in as well.
Thank you, John. So in this room, we have several of our Florida DOT traffic operations engineers, our TSM engineers, and our leadership as well. And if you talk to any of them, you'll hear this theme of community participation. In fact, it is one of the themes from our leadership directly from our Secretary's office as well. We call it what is called a compass. So building a strong community is going to be the key to anything that we do, right? You can start with a local agency, and when you go to a local agency, the first thing they'll ask is, where is the state stewardship when it comes to technologies? When you go to our district office, which is really the nodal point, our district TSM and engineers, they do an outstanding job working with the local entities, trying to figure out what specifically their needs are, while also providing the resources to them from a technology point of view. So, our districts play a role. When it comes to interjurisdictional coordination, in Florida we have 8607 traffic signals on the state highway system. There's probably another 7,000 on the local roads. You cannot go from county X to county Y, which are next door to each other. One is pre-timed, another one has an exceedingly high adaptive signal control technology, right? So interjurisdictional coordination becomes the key when it comes to making sure that the customers do not see the difference when they cross county lines. That is a point we all have been hearing for 2 decades plus, right? How do you make it happen? This is where you really need coordination at the local level. Then when you come to the regional level, Florida has 27 MPOs, Metropolitan Planning Organizations. And our leadership works through the Metropolitan Planning Organization Advisory Council to get the message across on DOT's initiatives, while also receiving the feedback on the do's and don'ts, shall we say, when it comes to technology. Some local agency may prefer freight, somebody else may prefer bike ped system out there. So you need to customize and make sure that the local communities are bought into the type of technology you want to deploy and the pace at which you want to deploy. And last but not the least, John, who is our neighbor, when it comes to emergency response with Trey Tillenders and our leadership, we always coordinate with them. If the emergency shoulder use is going to terminate at the borderline, we want John to know that there's going to be traffic coming his way, and hopefully he can post a message on dynamic message signs before traffic moves back into the state of Florida. So interjurisdictional coordination is key. At the national level, you have connected vehicle pool fund studies, you have all kinds of things. We have the AASHTO CTSO with whom we work regularly. So the key is playing a role at various levels is what brings confidence to the partners before they come talk to you. And I think to the earlier panel's point, let them bring solutions which are going to be ready-made, which will not consume a lot of your time, and most importantly, make a difference at the field level, which the communities can appreciate. That is really the way we want to tackle things. Yeah.
So I'm going to answer that in 2 different ways. I think the first one is looking at how can we work with our partners from that regional and in a national perspective. Some ways, like I even met Elise, was working on the MassDOCAV committee, participating in other national organizations, bodies, working in the different pooled funds. That is critical for us being able to share what's working well, what's not. I don't want Michigan to do the exact same thing that Minnesota did and expect to have different results. We all know what that is. And we're doing that. We need to make sure that we're sharing what those lessons learned are so that we can advance the technology further, we can address the issues that we currently see to make it better. But a part of that question, John, that you were asking is how can we connect to communities as well, focusing on that community-driven technology and transportation systems. I think that's the foundation of what Minnesota is trying to do. We've created a strategic communications plan regarding CAV, specifically CAV and technology. We're trying to build knowledge in our state about what connected and automated vehicles and ITS technology is. We're trying to develop relationships with different communities, with our city and county engineers, with the general public. And then third, we're trying to institutionalize that messaging within our own projects so that our project managers and other folks, as they go to different open houses, project meetings, they can speak to what CAV is. They can talk to communities. And at the core of that, though, is understanding what the challenges are that currently exist and what the fears and opportunities are that folks like to see for the future. There's a number of folks that the system does not work well for today. There's a number of us that it works quite fine for. And I think there's a lot of opportunity for us to understand what those biggest challenges are, to put those at the forefront of the challenges that we're actually going to try to move forward and solve.
Thank you.
I'll just respond to that. One of the ways I think that we can work better with the community is through direct partnership with the communities. So, for example, we have a P3 with the City of Detroit, the State of Michigan, and Ford Motor Companies to have an area in downtown Detroit that has an innovation zone specifically to be able to innovate what solutions could exist to make this particular community better. And I think it's one of those things that's really interesting because the goal is not just to make the area better for those that are going to be putting businesses in, because obviously that always seems like it's a main goal, but it's about the idea of looking at the existing community and be able to address the needs that that community has. At the heart of why they've had a challenging time there are issues that can be solved through intelligent technology solutions, but it's about bringing it to them in a very digestible way. Right, and it's about encouraging them and engaging them and showing that, look, you can be a part of this future and you can be able to have this technology without it being something that you have to have a device to be able to see the benefit of them. And so I think looking at it from a sustainability way is very critical, but also looking at it from a social justice and an equity solution, it has to be mission critical. So forming those partnerships direct with the community and not just having it be this big brother that exists and kind of mandates things down, looking at the issues and solving the problems that lie.
I think a lot of it is having the right interactions with the right frequency with the right audience, and ranging from an international focus, and I'm thankful to our AASHTO partners for helping to facilitate some of that, to this here and this when it's the World Congress. There's a time and a place, right? And it's good to see you all, and it's good to be here. But let me take it down to kind of a very specific level. I am fortunate that in Georgia's world of traffic operations, we've got scary, smart, very young people. They're great. They're brilliant. They have energy. I think of one of them who spoke here at ITS America a few years ago on our signal metrics dashboard. He's now in another part of our organization. And I was at heard him speak recently, where he schooled the audience in how to reach out and talk to and engage a community and propose and ultimately implement safety-related solutions. And I was so impressed at what he said because everything he was talking about was soft skills. None of this was engineering and technology, but yet I know he knows that. We're also fortunate that through other moves and promotions and things, the individual that is over really a big part of this portfolio for us came to us from one of our district traffic engineering roles, has that outreach, has that dealing at the community levels, and is also a national expert on roundabouts. She gets that technology and operational mix. And again, the soft skills of dealing with the people, the communities that are touched or that we want to be touched by these solutions that we propose. Very thankful for all of them.
John, can I add one more thing?
Sure.
So as Elise was speaking, I wanted to just highlight one project in particular where she was mentioning community challenges. We have one project in Minnesota that speaks to that completely. It was 4 years in the making that the community even worked on before they came to the Minnesota DOT for funding. And it's our automated vehicle project in Grand Rapids, Minnesota, not Grand Rapids, Michigan, Grand Rapids, Minnesota. About 6,000 people. It's a rural community. And it's utilizing AV technology to bring different, to use shuttles to get, or I guess they're actually minivans, to get people around in the community where transit options don't currently exist, and particularly for folks with disabilities. This was a project that when they came to us, it spoke to our values, it spoke to all the goals that we're trying to achieve, and what's making it successful is that they developed it. It wasn't our project, as much credit as I'd love to take. We're a part of it, we're a funder, we're a partner, but letting the community develop and propose those projects is critical, I think, for making sure that we're actually creating a system that works for all people.
All right, thank you. I want to move on to a two-part question. To do all the great things that you are being asked to do by your citizens and that you know to do as professionals that are passionate about your roles and responsibilities, you need a lot of resources. You need people, you need technologies, you need the right policies, you need the right research, and of course you need the proper amount of funding. So the question is, what are the gaps that you have, and how can we go about helping address that? And then secondly, the Infrastructure Investment and Jobs Act has brought in unprecedented or at least historic funding for transportation improvements. How are you leveraging the Infrastructure Investment and Jobs Act funding to do a lot of the great things that you'll do? So I'm going to start with Elise, and then we'll go to John and back down the road.
Yeah, I think you hit the nail on the head there. What are the gaps and the lack? And I think it is all of the above. I mean, and not in a bad way. That's making it sound like woe is me and there's nothing that can be done. But I think, we always need more funding and resources. I think you touched on the people, and those are the resources that are so difficult to find, and they are something that is just completely critical because you have to have those individuals that have the passion for the space and the want to be able to think creatively outside of the box to be able to bring it forward. So I think that being able to have more education programs that ultimately lead people to this space is something that is really interesting. We're starting to see be developed, but it needs more. It needs to be something that's at a national scale. It's not just random community colleges in Michigan that are being able to start developing these CAV or ITS-centric degrees. I also think that, really looking at the ways in which we can address all of these gaps is going to be something that will ultimately allow us to do better. I think that we constantly need to reevaluate what we are putting out there to ensure that we are addressing those gaps, and how can what we are doing at a national scale come down and feed what the states are doing. I think the national deployment plan that's coming out is very exciting, and I'm very excited to see the ways in which that can supplement what we are doing at the states. I think there are going to be a lot of gaps that are filled by that deployment plan, so I have very high hopes, very high expectations for that coming out, so very excited to see that.
John?
Thank you, and thank you. I would like to bite on any number of things that Elise said because I agree with so many of them, but I'm gonna stick with where I said I was going to go. Gaps as I see them in this industry, I will cite two of them, and one of them is it's a knowledge gap between the executive leadership at some agencies, not so much those that were on the prior panel, because you heard that, and the staff that's doing the work, and the need for some sort of gap-filling material, interaction, I don't know what it is, so that there's a better understanding of what the folks that are doing this are doing and what good it does. Another gap that seems to bubble up a lot, and many of you in the room have experienced it, at least I suspect you have, not that it's fun, is a gap between those technical people that are the deployers and the operators and the people that they turn to buy those things that they need. And there is our friends at Federal Highways who take a lot of heat concerning rules and restrictions and things like that. Oftentimes, those constraints that are expressed, challenges that are expressed, are oftentimes internal to the organization. And I would argue that the people that, on the agency side, that do this work have to be some of the most nimble in terms of understanding their agency's rules and laws on how to buy things. Because within this world that we function, they are apt to buy things that are commodity level items, professional services, and high-tech, very sophisticated and complicated deployments, all occurring within the same part of the organization? And are they best equipped to do that and accomplish that successfully?
Thank you. Tara?
So I'm going to take this a little different. In ITS funding, everyone says we need more funding, but not going to lie, in Minnesota we don't. I actually have dedicated funding and an awesome program called the CAV Challenge that, thanks to my predecessor, Kristen White, was created. So it allows industry to propose different projects so we can solve today's and tomorrow's transportation challenges with CAV, with ITS, with emerging technologies. So we have funding to be used. We just need more people to bring their ideas to the table. So recognize that even though IIJ is great and a lot of funding's coming out of there, there's other places where there's funding opportunities as well. So if you guys have any great ideas, I encourage you to talk to me later. Thank you.
Raj.
Okay, I'll try to tackle 4 things very quickly. Let's talk about funding. Usually it is not a good idea to go ask for money without a plan, right? It makes common sense. So one of the first things we did was to develop just a 10-page connected and automated vehicle business plan where we had 7 focus areas, and the second of the 7 focus areas is funding. It's not the first one, but the second one. The key is to make a business case in line with the department's vision. If safety and mobility are the drivers which are important to the department, which they are in every department's case, you work backwards from there. What is it that I should be doing? What specific things should I be creating to achieve that end goal? So funding will come on its own, provided we have a good business case. We're going to be nimble, we're going to be focused, don't ask for things you don't want to accomplish, and tell the story right? With respect to the ITS program in Florida, we have one of the most robust programs in the country. We have 100% fiber optic coverage. We have what is called a 10-year ITS maintenance formula. We have a 10-year cost feasible plan. We have what is called a maintenance formula. So advanced planning from our district TSM engineers and ITS engineers and central office have truly been the key to making sure that there's sustained funding over a long period of time, to making sure that it is just not the capital ITS, but the O&M, the operations and maintenance needs are also being met pretty regularly. We also have what is called a signal maintenance and compensation agreement. This is where the partnership with local agencies comes into play. So you are compensating them for the services they're performing, and Florida has a $50 million per year program just dedicated to maintaining the 8,600 traffic signals, which goes to show that signals are a key part, the arterial system, as much as the freeway system that we have. We also have a comprehensive local agency program, which every state does, but we also have a comprehensive workforce development initiative as a part of that. So we conduct training programs, etc., not just for our DOT staff, but also for local agencies. So funding, fortunately, has not been a big challenge, but there will always be times when you need to make a good business case because you're competing for capital dollars. So you better explain why you want those dollars for the ITS program. Very quickly, resources. This is probably a gap which everybody feels, just not Florida DOT. Public sector is feeling it, private sector is feeling it. There's significant turnover where you look, no matter where you look at it. This is one reason why I'm sure our secretary also highlighted the need for looking at workforce development, not just inner workforce development, but also externally. The more you enable the local agencies, the more successful you will be as a state entity. From a policy point of view, making a case to the leadership and serving as an intermediary between our district offices who have needs and with the leadership whose mission and vision have to be fulfilled. That is one of the important goals of a headquarters program like the way I'm involved in when it comes to policy framework. And lastly, from a research point of view, Florida has been blessed with a really good, robust research program. In fact, our connected and automated vehicle program started with the research program. Our first set of signal phase and timing projects, our first set of bicycle pedestrian safety projects. I can go on and on. Artificial intelligence, machine learning, these things have come out of the research projects, but the key is not to hang on to that word called pilot. Pilot is good for a few days, right? A pilot is supposed to land the airplane so you can go home, right? So pilots should last only a certain time frame. We should start mainstreaming the projects and test them out in the field and scale them up or scale them down depending on how they go forward out over there. So yeah, there are gaps, but they're not insurmountable gaps, I guess is what I'm trying to say.
All right, thank you. And I'm going to ask one last question and a quick response from each of our panel members. I'll start with John, but that is, what is the one thing you need most from the US DOT and the rest of your partners to help you deploy at scale?
I would ask that the US DOT take the deployment plan that was developed and forwarded on by ITS America, take a good hard look at it, and let's talk. I look forward to a good, carefully thought out plan that we can all agree to and follow.
Thank you. Tara? Oh, excuse me, Elise.
I think that what we really need from the USDOT is just more continued leadership. I think that the leadership that has been started and formed in these last number of years and the directionality that they've started to go is really excellent, and I'm just excited to see that continue.
Thank you. Tara?
One thing that I think would be really helpful is looking at how we can start to take all the lessons that states have learned, bring those together, and start putting that into action with some standards, some policies, and some things that start to put some guardrails so that we know that as we continue down this path, we're actually going to be achieving the goals that we say we are.
Very good. Raj?
Yeah, I think the recent FCC decision actually is one of the good examples of how national level stewardship can help. There's also the National Roadway Digital Infrastructure Initiative that is unfolding, so it'll be interesting to see how that works. But also we want Federal Highway to tell the FDOT story, because we do a lot of great things in Florida, and we'll be doing that too, but we want to do it.
Thank you. So let me just wrap up before we give our sign of appreciation to our panel members here. In the two panels, we've heard about the importance of using real-time information to share data about what's happening on the networks across the system, that it's about all road users, including goods movement, that providing flexibility through things like a mobility wallet that Michigan is innovating is critical for many of our community members, and that modernizing our system like the Project Greenlight program in New York is crucial to advancing these types of solutions. Data is so critical, and we have to start understanding the digital infrastructure and how we can inform and utilize the information that we can get from data. We have to understand that humans will make mistakes and develop solutions that provide an opportunity to compensate for some of those. Interagency cooperation and coordination is crucial to success, and that educating the community on what ITS and CAV really is so that they can understand it is important. And then, of course, all the gaps that this panel has identified are so important. So I would like to ask you to join me in a round of applause for our second panel members and the great information they've shared. And to close out this session, I'm going to ask David McCrae from Amazon Web Services to come up and share a few thoughts.
Thank you, John. And I would like to do a round of applause for John for excellent moderation. My name is David McCrae, and I am with Amazon Web Services. AWS is proud to be a sponsor of this event. I am part of the AWS Transportation Vertical, and I focus on modernizing DOTs and DMVs. Connected vehicles, predictive analytics, digital infrastructure are just some of the innovative technologies helping to change transportation. However, implementation of these technology ideas is key to innovation. On behalf of AWS, I want to thank all the panelists for their time and insightful comments. The panelists demonstrated that they are forward-thinking, innovative leaders that are improving transportation, safety, and goods movement by implementing intelligent transportation systems. Thank you to all the panelists, and thank you very much for all attending.